Hello there, and welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I'm going to recap In the Shadow of the Moon. A warning, spoilers ahead, please be cautious. Before we start, please support our channel by subscribing and clicking the bell icon for future notifications. Now let's start. It's 1988. A pianist, a bus driver, and a chef have died with bleeding from their eyes and mouths, whereas Officer Thomas has left for his night shift with Maddox, leaving his pregnant wife at home. They get to know about the death of a bus driver at intermission. There at the crime scene, Thomas' brother-in-law and detective Holt let them see the dead body. He has 2 puncture scars behind his neck. They learn about the death of 2 other people. Holt reaches there, and Thomas and Maddox accompany him there too. They have puncture scars on their neck as well. Holt thinks that it is a serial killer. Holt wants to oversee this case himself for promotion. But Thomas, being curious, goes to the hospital. He asks the doctor. The doctor says that they don't know anything about the substance that was injected. It's hard for them to find the cause of death. Maddox then takes Thomas from there. They buy food, and Thomas purchases a bracelet for his wife. Then they get to know that a girl has been attacked. The girl has the same puncture scars, but she's not yet dead. They go to the club where that girl is, and she says a girl attacked and injected something into her. Also, that girl had dried blood on her hands. Her eyes and mouth start to bleed, and she then dies. They're investigating all the girls in the neighborhood when an officer sees the same girl stealing a car, but she runs away. Thomas is heading towards the location with Maddox, and that girl comes in front. She jumps in the car and runs away. Thomas turns over and follows her with his car. They tell everyone about that girl's location. They get out of the car when trucks come over. She has gone into the alleys. Thomas and Maddox are finding her, and Thomas sees her in the subway station. Thomas alerts everyone, and they all cover the subway. Thomas has gone to the tracks through a hole where he finds the injector. Maddox finds that girl at the station, but she hits him and runs away from there. Thomas reaches for him, and hearing his scream, Thomas goes after her and reaches a corner. That girl knows him and congratulates him for being a baby girl. Also, she consoles him over the death of his partner. Thomas is surprised to see that she knows it all. Thomas thinks she's talking silly, but soon she handcuffs him and ties him to a chair. Thomas injects her own chemical in her leg, and she loses her balance. She dies unter dem Zug. Then Thomas gets to know about her wife's labor. Thomas reaches the hospital, and an officer shows him the keys and says that the girl is not registered. Also, the bullet shot at her is from a police revolver, but Thomas hasn't used any bullet. Thomas goes to see her wife. Her heartbeat is going low. Sometime later, they hand them a baby girl, and they get to know about her death. 9 years later, in 1997, people are protesting for the missing girl and the promotion of Holt and Thomas. When Thomas takes his daughter, Amy, to his wife's grave, someone has already put flowers there. He's surprised to see that. They're getting back from the cemetery when he gets a call from Maddox. He tells him about a professor who died just the same way. Thomas takes Amy with him there. Holt and Maddox have not gone to her grave. Then an officer calls him to see the CCTV footage. They see the same girl from 9 years ago. They think that she's a copycat. Thomas denies giving footage to the press, but Holt opposes him. Thomas then reaches the station with Maddox. He opens the case's box again and hands the keys to another officer to check. While Holt has shown footage in a press conference, he is working on victims, and the protests have increased. Police have buckled their work as well. Officer tells Thomas that the keys are to planes made in 1996. Well, keys were made in 1996, and the girl had them in 1988. That suspect is seen in an airfield. Thomas and Maddox are leaving there when the officer tells him about a physicist waiting for him. They meet physicist Naveen, who says that the suspect comes every 9 years. In accordance with the lunar moon, the gravitational force increases, and the time travel is possible. At that time, Maddox doesn't believe, while Thomas is skeptical, and they both leave. They reach the airfield. Thomas climbs the fence, but Maddox stays there because of his broken leg. Thomas asks the owner about the girl's location, and he draws an arrow. She has aimed the gun at Thomas, and she's the same girl from 9 years ago. She makes him sit on a chair and asks the owner to tie his hands, while Maddox is hearing it all on call. When her time is up, she throws him into the sea. She crashes her plane on an island. Holt takes his force to that island, but that girl is not found. Thomas tells him that she has come from the future, but Holt thinks he's talking nonsense. 9 years later, in 2006, Thomas is obsessed with this case, and he has been working on it for 9 years. He is looking for the missing physicist Naveen. Also, he looks up the grave and sees that he's a victim. He goes to see his wife. The victim was a white nationalist. He joins the dots, seeing his mail list. But one woman from their white nationalist team is yet alive. She's the next victim. He calls Halt to find her address, but he doesn't pick up Thomas and goes to pick up Amy from school. She lives with Halt, and they don't meet so often. Amy is pretty sad about it. Thomas drops her off and goes to meet Halt at the diner. He tells him that the girl is coming back into the past, and they need the victim's ex's address to catch her. He asks him for help, but Halt calls her lunatic and leaves. Thomas follows Halt and starts crying, to which Halt hugs her and leaves, whereas Thomas uses Halt's badge to find the address. He finds her dead, and the girl is running away through the window. He shoots her on her hand and follows her down the road by snatching someone else's car. Then he follows her by foot. The girl has gone into a tunnel. He sees the girl disappearing on her time machine. When he gets back, the police surround him. He's screaming for the truth to Halt, but no one listens. He's put in a van, and Naveen is watching it all from a cliff 9 jars better. In 2050, we see Naveen injecting animals. The result is the same as the girl's victims. He's told about a camp set near the sea by Thomas. Thomas gets a text from Amy calling him on her daughter's birth. When Naveen kidnaps him, he tells Thomas that she's killing people because she wants to stop a huge tragedy in the future. Naveen has made injectors for her help, and its effects can be triggered through time. During their talks, Thomas holds his gun to shoot while Naveen is trying to snatch it. Their van gets into an accident. In their fight, Thomas is injured, and he heads towards the sea. She shows her the bracelet of his wife. She's his granddaughter, Raya. He apologizes to her and says that he needs to go into the past. Raya says that the past can't be changed, but there'd be chaos if they didn't change this dimension. Raya asks him to go home, and we see the story from flashbacks that a civil war had begun after last, and they started killing people who were involved, and that's how the future changed. We see that the tragedy of 2046 shown in the first scene is no more. In the present, Thomas goes over to Amy to meet Raya, and with that the movie ends.